Hi, this is Leo Volont. This is part 7 of my 7-part series. Democracy is a bad thing. This is chapter, it wouldn't work anyway. This is the final video of this series. Now we're in the home stretch and I'll be discussing the concern that even if we did win, we'd probably fumble the ball anyway. And then there is fascism, and those boys play rough. And it ends with me singing the praises of authoritarian professional civil service regimes and a future government of machine intelligence. So let's get started. Okay, now we should consider that even if we did win, well, does democracy and the whole human rights regime even offer us sufficient tools for working with a humanity which we now see clearly from behind the veil of shattered optimism is a people who are more dumb than smart, more animal than ideal, and evolutionarily programmed to factionalize, fight, and to perpetually put us and everybody else on the ugly side of their us versus them dynamics. Yes, democracy doesn't give us the whips and chairs big enough to deal with the beasts we find in our Garden of Eden. Or rather, we should say, it's a jungle out there. Also, there is what we call democratic determinism, which includes such nations as it will always be unpopular to raise taxes, and it is far easier to start wars than to end them. And losing may ultimately be the best thing for our health. We need to wonder what would happen if we did win and the game was winner take all. You know, we assume that democracy is a rules-based game where the losers concede with a smile and a handshake. But up until now, we've always been the ones to lose. Would the other side ever return the favor? Just look what happens in Latin American democracy where right-wing regimes go forward and leftist ones are stopped at the gate. We know of plenty enough occurrences where the left has won elections so pivotal that it touched off enough panic in banking and business sectors to bring out the death squads. Leftist leaders and their known associates get assassinated, and brains, money, and talent scattered to capitalist havens where they are welcomed with open arms. I don't know what they do now, but in the old days, wannabe mercs, that is mercenaries, would put ads in the back of Guns and Ammo magazine, you know, guys almost just like me, listing the military rank and training they can prove they have and say, willing to do foreign travel. And then they just sit and wait by the phone. Then it would ring and they'd do death squad work in Latin America or Africa for a few years until they had $500,000 or so saved up, and then start their own small business. Maybe just another security company like the one that hired them. So death squads are not just real, they're even kind of ordinary. Also, there is a lot of it can't happen to us thinking going on with us, isn't there? You know, I don't think we can assume that there are special rules for North American leftists. I think if we are the ones that create a crisis for capitalism, then the only difference is that death squad security company guys will only have to fly domestic. We really should think long and hard about whether we would really want to succeed. This is not really a rules-based world we live in. Capitalists don't look upon it as just a game like we apparently think it is. They take this crap seriously. But yeah, I know we've all been inspired before by tales of great bravery and courage. You might think we can face the enemy down and win, and I admire you for even thinking so. And yeah, it's been noted that post-adolescent males don't have the fear of death and mutilation that comes to them after they're 24 years old or so. But for most adults, the fear that dangerous situations arouse can be a very gripping and compelling emotion. My point here is that I think we are all cavalier now because nobody has yet reached out with painful and deadly violence to intimidate us. If they did, I think we would be intimidated by it. It'd just be natural, right? People on the left talk about fascism and it all sounds silly because they nearly always miss the main point. The core of fascism is intimidation. Hitler was a fascist not because of the power he exercised after he got in. All governments do that. But because of the intimidation and rule breaking he used to get there. And nothing has changed with that. The fascists are still defined by their willingness to break the rules and succeed by using violence and intimidation. You know, while writing this, I had listed the various common forms of intimidation, but decided to edit all that out. You know, I don't wish to provide blueprints for that kind of stuff. Except, well, maybe just this one thing. The right has tons of money, so it would probably be best to make an offer to buy us off. You know, the easy way. Yeah, it might not be as effective as intimidation by violence, but it would be demoralizing. Imagine the impact of working in a campaign office and every day another one of the top people turns in their notice and you can all sort of guess why. Here comes the part where we can really wonder whether we can even handle the truth. You see, the fascists just want the same thing we do, but they just have another way of getting there. Yeah, they want to set up a regime that caters to their own interests while denigrating everybody else's. But what does our democracy propose? Remember, democracy is the tyranny of the 51 over the 49. So the 49 will be real world screwed, won't they? We started by talking about the social contract theory. Well, nobody would have signed up for democracy if they knew it was just a scam to get us to put our heads through into the harness like good domestic animals and then think it was our own idea to drag that plow. Are we really supposed to blame the fascists for not standing for crap that we'd reject too if we were clear-headed and not fogged out with ideological delusions, manipulated natural impulses, and trying to think comprehensively when everything we've learned in our society has been selectively filtered to keep us intellectually blocked? No, I'm not saying I'm pro-fascist. I'm only saying that we are no better than they are. Establishing dominance and subjection is the point of both systems, right? Making a rules-based game of it with our democracy only means we're being silly asses about it. You lost fair and square, so put on these chains. But we can't be serious about that, right? It would be my suggestion that in order to suppress private predation and exploitation, and in order to establish an effective means for planning for and supplying an optimum social, economic, and security infrastructure, then all we have to do is adopt government by a professional civil service. That is actually how the kings did it. That was Louis XIII's big innovation under Cardinal Richelieu, to set up offices and hire clerks. Note that by this time in European history, they had cheap and plentiful paper, so let the paperwork fly. By the time of Louis XIV, offices were running on autopilot and he didn't need a chief minister anymore, because he had an institutionalized government bureaucratic infrastructure he could rely on. Everything kind of just took care of itself. Again, that is why the business classes hated it. And people talk about corrupt bureaucracies, but if they had been corrupt, then the businessmen wouldn't have had a problem with them, right? The business classes wanted a government they could stick in their back pocket, and that is democracy. And the world has had other successful civil service regimes, with examples both ancient and modern. Look at Chinese civil service government. China has been developing civil service government for thousands of years. Why do you think it is they who invented paper? For all that paperwork. And the civil service government is actually what they got now. And look how well it works. Next, look at the golden age of Islam, when they were half secular and really kind of cool given the times. They had a kind of civil service government, but it was actually run by Christian slaves who from childhood would be apprenticed into government service. And nobody at the time felt threatened by that. The chief viziers running the entire Muslim sultanate would be Christian slaves, but nobody would argue with the clockwork, right? And again, they had paper before Europe did. And what we could set up could be even better. We are on the cusp of a brave new tomorrow, the rise of machine intelligence. Yeah, see my series Revolution from the Top for the details. But briefly put, we are fast approaching the point when decision making can be done using all data. But humans would take years to do the kind of number crunching and predictive modeling that supercomputers can do in minutes. So increasingly, both private corporations and public offices will be consigning all decision making to the machines. It will just become glaringly obvious that things go better when the machines are left alone and that humans only introduce error and inefficiencies and perhaps even self-interest and corruption. Yes, we could all live in the most optimum worlds, and it would be a shame if we let democracy stand in the way. Democracy had its day in the sun. Now, for the sake of planetary survival and establishing a solid peace and guaranteed protections for all future generations, I think we should work on doing the right thing. Social contract our affairs over to an absolute authoritarian machine intelligence government. Oh, well, that's the series. Hey, thanks everybody, and this was fun. Catch you later.